Hey, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And we have a great one for you today. Today, we're going to talk about how one lawyer courageously rebuilt his law firm after having the entire thing wiped out by a hurricane. But not only has he rebuilt it, but he's really gotten to a position where he's got a unique niche, a unique model, and has grown his firm very, very well and very aggressively. So with that, I'd like to welcome to today's episode, Gerard Virga from the Virga Law Firm. Gerard, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on, Steve.
It's great to have you on, and you have a lot to share. You and I were talking about everything from AI to growth. We're having all kinds of good conversations. Unfortunately, I forgot to record them. So we're going to have to start from ground zero on a couple of these things. So before we talk about how you rebuilt your law firm, could you tell everybody a little bit about your practice, where you're at, what you do, so they can have an appreciation of where you're at today, who you represent, all those kind of good things?
Okay, well, back in 2015, I had just got done going through a divorce myself, and I was married to a lawyer, and unfortunately, that didn't work out. We do have two beautiful kids together, and I had to start over. And so I started over, and I decided I wanted to just solely focus on family law. And so I opened up an office first in Panama City, and then within about a year's time, we had expanded over to Fort Walton, and then over to Pensacola. And we have a satellite office in Orlando now with some remote attorneys in Indian River, Orlando area, West Palm. And so we're now doing cases pretty much throughout the state of Florida using a mix of brick and mortar and remote hybrid type work.
So I have a question, Gerard. Why family law?
You know, that's the first question I ask people when they interview, what's your why? Because if you can't come up with a why, like in the first 30 seconds or so, that intrigues me, then you probably don't have what it takes to do family law, because it's so emotionally, draining in a lot of ways, and just an emotional type of litigation. And, not to sound cheesy, Steve, but the best thing I can tell you is one time I was out eating with my wife, and this young lady came up and hugged me. As you can imagine, my wife wanted to know who the heck that was. And, before I could figure out who it was, she said, "Sir, thank you. You don't remember me. I was 8 years old, and I was in a home where my mother was being abused, and, my father was fighting for custody of me. And, you can put a lot of zeros at the end of a check, but, no amount of zeros will make that up. That's when you go to bed at night, knowing that you help people through that, whether it be, children who are in a bad place or people who are really struggling emotionally going through the process, to be there for them when they're not in a position maybe to be there for themselves and to be their voice. That's why I choose to do it.
Could you share everybody with your tagline? You have a great tagline on your firm.
We just, our overall goal is that we're going to help you rebuild. And we've had to, through, you mentioned the hurricane, I'm sure we're going to go into that, but we're always rebuilding, and, life is always forcing you to have to rebuild. And, and that's what we want to be there, is we want to be the people who help you rebuild that tomorrow. In fact, one of my favorite lines, if you get in there with me during a consultation or, giving clients some advice, is you cannot live life looking in the rearview mirror. It's guaranteed way you're going to slam into something. And let's not looking in the past, and let's look to tomorrow and what we can build for tomorrow and get you to that tomorrow that you want. And that's what we remind our clients of. And when we have our team huddles, that's we're building a firm for tomorrow. What worked yesterday won't work for tomorrow, and it's always changing and evolving, and you're always rebuilding. And we're here to help people rebuild their lives from probably one of the most devastating things you can experience.
It is attorney and counselor at law. So I think there's a lot of counseling involved. And what I hear from you is a lot of wisdom from your own battle scars and going to court. I mean, you just mentioned that you've done 5 trials at the beginning of this year already. So that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of trial work.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. That's a lot of trial work. That's a lot of preparation. That's a lot of, that's a lot of wear and tear. So let's anything else you want to say about that before we talk about your rebuild, the physical rebuild?
I just think that, the biggest thing for whether you're an attorney listening or you're somebody going through a family law situation, just try to focus on what is positive in the future and, what you need to build that future and what your client really needs to build that future, as opposed to getting hung up on, like I said, the zero sum game or the tit for tat. And that's where I try to strategically focus my mind, whether it's an emotional thing or it's, dealing with the children, or if it's a financial thing. What do we really need to build the future that you want to have? And how do I secure that future for you and give you a good foundation where you can go forward, and not have to dwell on the negativity of the past, and maybe hopefully those wounds will heal, if I can get you a good foundation for the future. That I tell clients all the time, the best revenge in life is success. If you're happy going forward, that is the best revenge. It's better than any tit for tat, nasty text message. When you're happy and you're prospering, that's success. And, let the other side see that, and don't ever let them see you down and they got the better of you, and let's be positive and move forward.
Great advice. Everything you're doing is reframing it from a punitive experience where there has to be punishment involved to an experience of future state, a future action, a future dream, a future rebuild. I really like it. If there's one message you go back in time and tell yourself, what do you think that would be? What would you say would be the most important message you could tell yourself?
I think the most important message you can tell yourself is, you're a lot more resilient and resourceful than you will ever give yourself credit for if you have the right reason why. If I think that's people all the time. Oh, I can never do this, or I can never do that, or I couldn't bounce back in. You can, you just got to find the right why, the right motivator. Um, we heard a gentleman speak not too long ago. Guy named Bernie, who was a Navy SEAL, and now he helps people get into the SEALs program and trying to trains them successfully. And he said the guy gets on the phone, the guy wants to get into the SEALs program, go to Buds, and he says he he can bench press this, he can run the mile in this. And he said, "Shut up." He said, "Anybody can do that." So you get your personal trainer that can do that. He's like, "I want to know your why." And he said, if they can't give me the why really quick, then I'm done. I won't train them because I have a good success rate. And he went on and he talked about the water. And he said, the water is the great equalizer. He said, in the SEALs, they make you lay down in the freezing water right there on the beach for hours with just enough where your head is not, covered, but you're basically freezing. And he said, they know exactly how many minutes they can keep you in before you go hypothermic. And then they'll let you get out and they put you right back in. And, and he said that the water is the great equalizer because no matter how big you are or strong you are, he said, the only thing that's going to keep you in that water is the why. And I think when we're in the struggle in life, sometimes it's the great equalizer, and lost your law office, or, shoot, everything I worked for, our entire system has been wiped out with the pandemic, and we're building new systems to accommodate all this. And how's this going to work? And, if you don't have the why and you can't hold on to that why, and you don't believe in yourself and that you can get there, um, then, I don't think it'll work for you. And I think that, you have to realize that you gotta have faith in you, and that you can do it, and you got the strength to do it, and just keep your mind focused on the why you're doing it. And then all the adversity will normally pass over time, and the why will stay.